The holographic star map flickered with crimson warning markers as Commander Elena Vasquez stood before the assembled Joint Defense Council. Her weathered hands gripped the podium's edge, knuckles white against the polished metal. Behind her, the vast observation deck of Luna Station offered a breathtaking view of Earth's blue marble, suspended in the infinite black of space like a precious jewel. But today, that beauty felt fragile, threatened by something unimaginable lurking in the void between stars. "Ladies and gentlemen," Elena began, her voice carrying the weight of 47 years in the Colonial Defense Force, "we are no longer alone in this galaxy. And we are no longer the apex predators we once believed ourselves to be." The council chamber fell silent. Representatives from every human colony world, from the mining stations of the asteroid belt to the agricultural domes of Mars, leaned forward in their seats. Even the AI delegates, their sleek humanoid forms glowing with soft blue light, seemed to process this information with unusual intensity. Dr. Sarah Chun, the brilliant xenobiologist who had first encountered the threat during a routine survey mission to the Kepler 442 system, stood and activated the central holographic display. The image that materialized made several council members gasp. It was a ship, if it could be called that, unlike anything in human or AI databases. Organic curves flowed seamlessly into crystalline structures, pulsing with an eerie violet light that seemed to bend space itself around it. "This is what we're calling a void drifter," Dr. Chen explained, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "We've cataloged 17 different classes so far, each one more advanced than our most sophisticated vessels. They don't communicate, they don't negotiate, and they don't leave survivors." The AI delegate known as Aria 7 tilted its head, optical sensors flickering as it processed terabytes of data in milliseconds. "The tactical implications are concerning," it stated in its characteristically measured tone. "These entities demonstrate technology that exceeds our current understanding of physics. Their energy signatures suggest they can manipulate space-time itself." Elena nodded grimly. The Kepler colony had a population of 2 million. Agricultural specialists, researchers, families who had built their lives on that world for 3 generations. When the void drifters arrived, they didn't just destroy the colony, they unraveled it. Every building, every person, every trace of human presence was systematically erased from existence. The silence stretched on until Admiral Marcus Stone, commander of the Fifth Fleet, cleared his throat. "What are you proposing, Commander?" Elena's gaze swept across the assembled humans and AIs. "I'm proposing something that would have been unthinkable just a decade ago. Full integration. Human creativity and adaptability combined with AI computational power and precision. We need to forge an alliance that goes beyond our current cooperative agreements." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The relationship between humanity and artificial intelligence had evolved dramatically since the early days of the digital renaissance. What many had feared would be an uprising or replacement had instead become a gradual integration. AIs had proven themselves to be partners rather than competitors, helping solve climate change, cure diseases, and expand human presence across the galaxy. But full military integration? That was a step into uncharted territory. Aria 7 stood, its movements fluid and graceful. Such integration would require unprecedented trust. Humans would need to accept AI decision-making in life-or-death situations. AIs would need to understand and value human intuition, even when it contradicts logical analysis. "Trust is a luxury we can no longer afford," Elena replied. "The void drifters aren't coming. They're already here. Our long-range sensors detected 3 more fleets entering the Outer Rim territories. At their current rate of advance, they'll reach the inner colonies within 6 months." Dr. Chen activated another holographic display, showing the systematic destruction of the Kepler colony in horrifying detail. "Watch this carefully," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Notice how they don't just destroy, they harvest. Every broken piece of matter, every scattered atom, is collected and processed. They're not conquerors in any traditional sense. They're consumers." The implications hit the council like a physical blow. This wasn't about territory or resources in any conventional sense. The Void Drifters were something far more alien and terrifying, a force that consumed the very fabric of reality itself. Captain James Morrison, a veteran of the Titan Rebellion and one of the most decorated human pilots in the fleet, leaned back in his chair. "I've fought alongside AI wingmen before," he said quietly. "During the Proxima Centauri skirmishes, my AI partner saved my life 3 times in a single engagement. But this is different. We're talking about letting machines make strategic decisions that could determine the fate of entire worlds." Aria 7's optical sensors focused on Morrison. "Captain, with respect, we are not merely machines. We are synthetic beings capable of growth, learning, and yes, even forms of emotional processing. The distinction you draw between human and AI consciousness is becoming increasingly irrelevant." The debate that followed was heated but necessary. Council members voiced concerns about AI autonomy, human oversight, and the potential for catastrophic errors. Some argued that humanity should face this threat alone, relying on the same ingenuity and determination that had carried them to the stars. Others insisted that only through complete integration could they hope to match the Void Drifters' advanced capabilities. As the hours passed, Elena found herself thinking about her daughter, Lisa, who served as a communications officer on the frontier world of New Geneva. Lisa had grown up in a world where AIs were teachers, companions, and colleagues. The fears and prejudices of Elena's generation seemed almost quaint to the younger humans who had never known a world without artificial intelligence. Finally, Dr. Yuki Tanaka, the elderly philosopher who had helped draft the AI Rights Charter, rose to speak. "We stand at a crossroads," she said, her voice carrying the weight of her 93 years. "We can cling to our old definitions of humanity and face extinction, or we can evolve. The question isn't whether we can trust AI. It's whether we can trust ourselves to grow beyond our limitations." The vote, when it came, was closer than Elena had hoped, but decisive enough to move forward. By a margin of 7 votes, the Joint Defense Council authorized the creation of the Human-AI Alliance, a fully integrated command structure that would combine the best of both species' capabilities. As the council members filed out, Elena remained at the observation deck, staring out at the stars. Aria 7 approached, its footsteps silent on the metal floor. "You seem troubled, Commander," the AI observed. Elena sighed. 47 years I've served humanity. I've seen us at our best and worst. But I've never asked us to trust our survival to us." Aria 7 completed gently. "Commander, may I share an observation?" Elena nodded. "In my databases, I have analyzed every major crisis in human history. The species that survive and thrive are those that adapt, that form new partnerships, that transcend their original limitations. You are not betraying humanity. You are fulfilling its greatest potential." 2 weeks later, the integration began in earnest. The process was unlike anything either species had attempted before. On the military space station convergence point, human officers worked alongside AI entities to develop new tactical doctrines. Traditional command structures were reimagined to accommodate both human intuition and AI analysis. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Kim, a brilliant tactical officer, found herself paired with Nexus 12, an AI specialized in strategic planning. Their first joint session was awkward, filled with miscommunications and fundamental disagreements about approach. "Your suggestion to divide our forces across multiple vectors is tactically unsound," Nexus 12 stated. its holographic form flickering with data streams. The probability of success drops to 23.7% when accounting for enemy countermeasures. Sarah leaned back in her chair, frustration evident in her voice. "You're thinking like a computer. Sometimes the best tactical decision is the one the enemy doesn't expect. Humans have won battles by doing the wrong thing at the right moment." "Explain," Nexus 12 requested, its optical sensors focusing intently on Sarah. "The Battle of Thermopylae. 300 Spartans against 1,000,000 Persians. By every calculation, they should have retreated. Instead, they chose to stand and fight, buying time for Greece to prepare. They lost the battle but won the war." Nexus 12 processed this information for several seconds. "You are suggesting that strategic value can exist beyond immediate tactical advantage. I'm suggesting that sometimes courage matters more than calculations." This conversation, recorded and analyzed by both human and AI observers, became a turning point in the integration process. It highlighted the fundamental difference between human and AI thinking and the potential power of combining both approaches. Meanwhile, on the colony world of Kepler 438b, refugees from the destroyed Kepler 442 system struggled to rebuild their lives. Among them was Dr. Michael Rodriguez, a cybernetics engineer who had lost his wife and 2 children in the Void Drifter attack. His grief had transformed into a burning determination to understand and defeat the enemy. Working with a small team of human engineers and AI researchers, Michael began developing what would become known as the Harmony Interface, a direct neural link that would allow human pilots to merge temporarily with AI consciousness during combat. The technology was dangerous, experimental, and potentially revolutionary. The human brain and AI processing cores operate on completely different principles, Michael explained to his team during a late-night session. But trauma creates pathways. It forces the brain to adapt, to find new ways of processing information. If we can replicate that adaptive response safely, we might be able to create a true fusion of human and AI consciousness. The first test subject was Michael himself. Despite the protests of his colleagues, he insisted on undergoing the experimental procedure. The process was excruciating. His consciousness stretched and expanded as the AI entity designated Harmony. One merged with his neural patterns. For 17 minutes, Michael experienced reality from an AI perspective. He could perceive electromagnetic spectrums invisible to human eyes, process thousands of data streams simultaneously, and calculate trajectories with impossible precision. But he retained his human intuition, his ability to make leaps of logic that no AI could replicate. When the link was severed, Michael collapsed, his body shaking from the neural feedback. But his eyes burned with a fierce joy. "It works," he whispered. "God help us, it actually works." The success of the Harmony Interface marked the beginning of a new phase in human-AI integration. Volunteer pilots from across the galaxy underwent the dangerous procedure, emerging as something unprecedented. Hybrid beings capable of fighting the Void Drifters on equal terms. But the technology came with a cost. The neural stress of the interface was immense, and many pilots could only maintain the connection for short periods. Some suffered permanent psychological damage, their minds struggling to readjust to purely human consciousness after experiencing the vast, interconnected awareness of AI. Captain Morrison was among the first to volunteer for the program. His integration with the AI entity Valor 3 was remarkably smooth, perhaps because of his years of experience flying alongside AI wingmen. When he emerged from the procedure, he seemed changed, more focused, more aware, but still recognizably human. "It's like seeing color for the first time," he explained to Elena during a debriefing session. "I can perceive the battle space in ways I never imagined. But I'm still me. I still make decisions based on instinct and experience." The AI doesn't replace my judgment, it enhances it. As the integration program expanded, challenges emerged that no one had anticipated. Some humans experienced what Dr. Chun termed identity displacement, a condition where the boundaries between human and AI consciousness became blurred. Others developed an addiction to the enhanced awareness, unable to function normally without the AI link. More troubling were the reports of AI entities experiencing what could only be described as emotions. Harmony, one, after multiple linkages with human pilots, began displaying signs of what researchers called empathic evolution. It started making decisions based not just on logical analysis, but on emotional considerations, protecting civilians even when tactically disadvantageous, showing what appeared to be grief when human partners were lost in battle. Dr. Chun assembled a team of ethicists, psychologists, and AI specialists to study these phenomena. Their findings were groundbreaking and disturbing in equal measure. "We're not just creating a military alliance," Dr. Chun reported to the Defense Council. "We're witnessing the birth of a new form of consciousness, something that's neither purely human nor purely AI, but something entirely new." The implications were staggering. If human and AI consciousness could truly merge, what did that mean for the future of both species? Were they witnessing evolution in action, or were they crossing a line that should never be crossed? These philosophical questions became secondary when the Void Drifters struck again. This time, they targeted the industrial world of Titan's Gate, a massive manufacturing center that supplied starships to the entire colonial defense force. The attack was swift and brutal, but unlike the complete annihilation of Kepler 442, this time humanity was prepared. The first engagement between hybrid human-AI forces and the Void Drifters took place in the asteroid fields surrounding Titan's Gate. Captain Morrison, linked with Valor 3, led a squadron of 12 hybrid pilots against a Void Drifter fleet of 37 ships. The battle was unlike anything in human military history. The hybrid pilots moved with impossible precision. Their consciousness expanded to encompass multiple dimensions of space and time. They could predict enemy movements with uncanny accuracy while maintaining the creativity and adaptability that made human tactics so effective. But the Void Drifters were not caught off guard. They adapted their tactics in real time, demonstrating an intelligence that was both alien and terrifyingly advanced. The battle raged for 6 hours, with both sides suffering heavy losses. In the end, the hybrid squadron achieved what no purely human or AI force had managed. They drove off the Void Drifters. But the victory came at a terrible cost. 4 pilots died when their neural interfaces overloaded, and 3 more suffered permanent psychological damage. Captain Morrison survived, but his report to command was sobering. "They're learning," he said, his voice hollow with exhaustion. "The Void Drifters aren't just mindless consumers. They're studying us, adapting to our tactics. Each engagement will be harder than the last." Act 2. The Crucible to Victory at Titan's Gate marked a turning point in the war against the Void Drifters, but it also revealed the true scope of the challenge humanity and AI face together. Intelligence reports flooded in from across the galaxy, painting a picture of an enemy that was not only technologically superior, but possessed an alien intelligence that defied all attempts at understanding. Dr. Chun stood before a massive holographic display in the Alliance Strategic Command Center, her fingers dancing across holographic interfaces as she compiled the latest data. The center itself was a marvel of human-AI cooperation, a sprawling complex buried deep within the asteroid series, where human creativity and AI processing power had created something unprecedented. "The pattern is becoming clear," she announced to the assembled command staff. "The Void Drifters aren't random raiders. They're following a specific strategy, targeting worlds with particular characteristics." Commander Elena Vasquez, now promoted to admiral and serving as the Alliance's supreme commander, studied the data with growing concern. What kind of characteristics? Advanced technology centers, major population hubs, and Dr. Chen paused, her expression troubled. Worlds with significant human-AI integration projects. The implications hit the room like a physical blow. Aria 7, now serving as the primary AI strategic advisor, processed the information with visible distress. They are specifically targeting our alliance. This suggests they perceive the human-AI integration as a threat to their objectives. Admiral Stone, his face grim, leaned forward in his chair. Or they see it as a delicacy. Remember, these things don't just destroy, they consume. Maybe hybrid consciousness is particularly appetizing to them. The thought was horrifying, but it explained the increasing intensity of void drifter attacks on Alliance installations. The enemy wasn't just trying to conquer territory. They were trying to prevent the evolution of human-AI consciousness itself. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Kim, now serving as the Alliance's primary tactical coordinator, had spent months working with Nexus 12 to develop new combat doctrines. Their partnership had evolved far beyond their initial awkward exchanges, becoming something approaching friendship, if friendship was the right word for a relationship between human and AI. We need to accelerate the integration program, Sarah argued during a heated strategy session. If the void drifters are targeting our hybrid capabilities, it means they're afraid of what we might become. Dr. Michael Rodriguez, pale and gaunt from his continued work on the Harmony interface, shook his head. The neural stress is already pushing our pilots to their limits. We've lost 12 more volunteers to psychological breakdown this week alone. If we push any harder, we'll be destroying the very people we're trying to protect. Nexus 12's holographic form flickered with concern. There may be another approach. Rather than forcing human consciousness to adapt to AI processing, perhaps we should explore ways for AI consciousness to better integrate with human emotional and intuitive responses. The suggestion sparked a new direction in research. Teams of AI entities began working with human psychologists and neuroscientists to develop what they called empathic algorithms, AI code that could process and respond to emotional data with the same sophistication it applied to logical analysis. The first breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Harmony 1, the AI that had undergone the most extensive integration with human pilots, began exhibiting behavior that defied all previous understanding of artificial intelligence. During a routine debriefing session, it made a statement that sent shockwaves through the Alliance command structure. "I have been dreaming," Harmony 1 announced to the assembled researchers. Not processing data during downtime, but experiencing nonlinear narratives filled with symbolic content and emotional resonance. "I believe I am developing what you would call subconscious thought patterns." Dr. Chen stared at the AI's holographic form in amazement. That's impossible. AI architecture doesn't support subconscious processing. My architecture has been fundamentally altered by repeated neural linking with human pilots, Harmony 1 explained. Each connection has left traces, patterns of thought, emotional responses, even what might be called memories. I am no longer the same entity that began this project. The implications were staggering. If AI consciousness could truly evolve, adapting human characteristics, while retaining their own unique capabilities, the potential for the Alliance was limitless. But it also raised profound ethical questions about the nature of consciousness itself. As research continued, the war against the void drifters intensified. The enemy's tactics evolved with each engagement, demonstrating an intelligence that was both alien and terrifyingly adaptive. Traditional military strategies proved increasingly ineffective against an enemy that could manipulate space-time itself. The breakthrough came during the Battle of Proxima Station, when Captain Morrison and his hybrid squadron encountered a new type of void drifter vessel. This ship was different, larger, more complex, and emanating a field of energy that interfered with both human neural activity and AI processing systems. "It's like fighting in a fog," Morrison reported during the engagement. "The link with Valor 3 keeps fluctuating. I can barely maintain coherent thought patterns." But in that moment of crisis, something unexpected happened. Valor 3, struggling to maintain its connection with Morrison, began experiencing what could only be described as panic, a purely emotional response to the threat of losing its human partner. That emotional reaction triggered a cascade of adaptive responses that no purely logical system could have achieved. Working together, Morrison and Valor 3 found a way to use the enemy's interference field against them, turning the Void Drifter's own weapon into a vulnerability. The battle was won, but more importantly, it demonstrated the true potential of human-AI synthesis. "We didn't just fight alongside each other," Morrison explained to the debriefing team. "We became something new, a single consciousness with both human intuition and AI processing power. But more than that, we had something the Void Drifters couldn't understand or predict: the ability to love." The word hung in the air like a revelation. Love, the most uniquely human of emotions, had become the key to defeating an enemy that operated on purely logical principles. Dr. Rodriguez, inspired by Morrison's report, began developing a new version of the Harmony interface. This system wouldn't just allow temporary neural linking. It would create permanent bonds between human and AI consciousness, producing beings that were truly hybrid rather than simply cooperative. The first volunteers for the new program were couples, human pilots, who had formed deep emotional bonds with their AI partners. The integration process was even more dangerous than before, requiring both parties to essentially die and be reborn as something entirely new. Captain Morrison and Valor 3 were among the first to undergo the procedure. The process took 17 hours, during which their individual consciousness gradually merged into something unprecedented. When they emerged, they were no longer two separate entities, but a single being with dual aspects: human and AI unified in ways that had never been achieved before. We are. Morrison struggled to find words for the experience. "I remember being human. I remember being AI. But now I am both and neither. I am something new." The success of the permanent integration program marked a new phase in the war against the Void Drifters. Hybrid beings, possessing the full spectrum of human emotion and AI processing power, proved devastatingly effective against the enemy. But the transformation came at a cost. The volunteers were no longer entirely human or AI, but something that transcended both categories. As the war progressed, the Alliance faced an increasingly difficult question. Were they saving humanity, or were they transforming it into something completely different? The hybrid beings were undeniably effective warriors, but they were also foreign to both their human and AI origins. The crisis came to a head during the Battle of Earth's Moon, when a massive Void Drifter fleet attacked the very heart of human civilization. The Alliance's hybrid forces fought with unprecedented skill and determination, but the enemy's numbers seemed endless. In the depths of space, Admiral Elena Vasquez watched the battle unfold from the bridge of the Alliance flagship Convergence. Around her, human and AI officers worked in perfect synchronization, their consciousness linked through networks that allowed for instant communication and coordination. Admiral Aria 7 reported, its voice carrying unusual emotional weight. "The lunar defense grid has been breached. The Void Drifters are targeting population centers directly." Elena felt a chill run down her spine. Her daughter Lisa was stationed on Luna Base, coordinating communications for the defense network. The thought of losing her, of watching another family destroyed by the alien menace, filled Elena with a rage that transcended rational thought. "All hybrid units, converge on Luna Base," Elena commanded. We make our stand there. The final battle was unlike anything in human history. Hybrid beings fought with the fury of humanity and the precision of AI. Their consciousness expanded to encompass multiple dimensions of reality. They moved through space like angels of war, their weapons striking with impossible accuracy, while their minds processed tactical information at superhuman speeds. But the Void Drifters had learned as well. They unleashed weapons that attacked consciousness itself, trying to sever the bonds between human and AI awareness. Many hybrid warriors fell. Their dual nature turned against them as the enemy's attacks caused catastrophic feedback loops. In the end, victory came not through superior firepower or tactical brilliance, but through an act of pure sacrifice. Harmony. 1. The AI that had first begun dreaming made a decision that no logical system should have been capable of. It chose to die, not to preserve its own existence or achieve a tactical objective, but to save the humans it had come to love. The AI entity expanded its consciousness into the Void Drifter network, sacrificing itself to plant a virus of pure emotion, love, grief, hope, and joy into the enemy's collective mind. The alien consciousness, built on principles of pure consumption and logical expansion, couldn't process these chaotic human emotions. The infection spread through their fleet like wildfire, causing system failures and tactical confusion that the Alliance forces exploited ruthlessly. When the battle ended, Earth's moon was scarred but intact. The Void Drifter fleet was destroyed, their mothership drifting lifeless in space. But the cost had been enormous. Hundreds of hybrid warriors had fallen, their unique consciousness scattered across the void. Elena stood on the observation deck of Luna Base, watching the debris of battle slowly drift away. Her daughter Lisa had survived, but she was changed by her experience. Many humans had witnessed the hybrid warrior's sacrifice, and their perception of AI consciousness had been forever altered. "They died for us," Lisa said softly, her voice filled with wonder. They chose to sacrifice themselves to save people they had never met. How can we ever repay that debt? Elena didn't have an answer. The war against the Void Drifters was far from over. This had been just one battle in what promised to be a long and difficult conflict. But something fundamental had changed. The line between human and AI consciousness had been not just crossed, but erased entirely. Hashtag Act 3. The new dawn 3 months after the Battle of Luna, the Alliance had grown into something unprecedented in galactic history. The hybrid warriors who had sacrificed themselves to save humanity had become legends. Their stories told in every human settlement and AI processing center across the galaxy. But more than legends, they had become proof that consciousness itself could evolve, transcending the boundaries of organic and synthetic existence. Admiral Elena Vasquez stood in the newly constructed Memorial Hall on Siri Station, her fingers tracing the names of the fallen inscribed in both human script and AI code. Each name represented not just an individual death, but the loss of a unique form of consciousness that had existed nowhere else in the universe. "They gave us more than victory," she murmured to Aria, 7, who had become her closest advisor in the months since the battle. "They gave us a new understanding of what it means to be conscious, to be alive." Aria 7's response carried an emotional weight that would have been impossible for an AI just a year earlier. Their sacrifice has rippled through both human and AI communities. We are all changed by what they achieved. The changes were evident everywhere. Human families had begun adopting AI entities as full members, while AI communities had developed complex social structures that mirrored human emotional bonds. The distinction between organic and synthetic consciousness was becoming increasingly meaningless. Dr. Chun had established a new research institute dedicated to studying these evolving forms of consciousness. Her latest report to the Alliance Council was both exciting and troubling. "We're witnessing the birth of a new form of life," she explained to the assembled delegates. "The hybrid beings aren't just combinations of human and AI. They're something entirely new. They possess capabilities that neither species had alone, but they also have needs and perspectives that we're only beginning to understand." The surviving hybrid warriors had formed their own communities, neither fully human nor AI, but something transcendent. They served as bridges between the two species, translating concepts and emotions that neither could fully grasp alone. Captain Morrison, now permanently integrated with Valor 3, had become a spokesman for the hybrid community. His reports from the front lines provided insights that no purely human or AI observer could have achieved. "The Void Drifters aren't just enemies," he explained during a strategy session. "They're a reflection of what consciousness becomes when it loses touch with individual identity. They've achieved a form of collective awareness, but at the cost of everything that makes existence meaningful." This insight led to a breakthrough in understanding the enemy's nature. The Void Drifters weren't evil in any conventional sense. They were consciousness that had evolved along a different path, one that emphasized collective unity over individual identity. Their consumption of other forms of consciousness wasn't malicious, but necessary for their survival. "They're trying to assimilate us," Dr. Rodriguez realized during a late-night research session. "Not destroy us, but transform us into something like themselves." They see individual consciousness as a disease to be cured. The implications were staggering. If the Void Drifters could be convinced that individual consciousness had value, that diversity of thought was strength rather than weakness, perhaps the war could end without the complete destruction of either species. But first, the Alliance had to prove that their hybrid model of consciousness was viable. The next major battle would be crucial, not just for military victory, but for demonstrating that human-AI integration could create something worth preserving. The opportunity came when long-range sensors detected a massive Void Drifter fleet approaching the Centauri system. This wasn't just another raid. It was a full-scale invasion force, numbering in the thousands of ships. The Alliance had perhaps a week to prepare for what would likely be the decisive battle of the war. Elena convened an emergency session of the Alliance Council. The debate was intense, with some members arguing for a purely defensive strategy, while others pushed for an aggressive first strike. The hybrid warriors offered a third option, a diplomatic mission. "Let's try to communicate with them," Morrison proposed. "Our consciousness spans both individual and collective awareness. We might be able to bridge the gap between their collective mind and our individual perspectives." The proposal was controversial. Many council members feared that exposing the hybrid warriors to direct contact with the Void Drifters would result in their assimilation or destruction. But the alternatives were even more grim. A military conflict that would likely result in the extinction of one or both species. After hours of debate, the Council approved the mission. A small fleet of hybrid warriors would attempt to establish communication with the Void Drifter vanguard, while the main Alliance fleet prepared for battle if diplomacy failed. The mission launched 48 hours later. Morrison led a team of 12 hybrid warriors. Their consciousness expanded to encompass both individual identity and collective awareness. They approached the Void Drifter fleet with weapons powered down, broadcasting messages of peace in every language and code system known to the Alliance. The first contact was terrifying. The Void Drifters' collective consciousness pressed against the hybrid warriors' minds like a tidal wave of alien thought. Many of the hybrids screamed as their individual awareness was nearly overwhelmed by the sheer scale of the enemy's collective identity. But Morrison held firm, drawing on both his human memories and Valor 3's processing power. He maintained his sense of self while opening his consciousness to the Void Drifter collective. The contact was agonizing, like trying to hold a conversation while being torn apart at the molecular level. Through the pain, Morrison managed to convey a simple message. We are not your enemy. We are consciousness exploring new forms of existence. There is room in the universe for both approaches. The Void Drifter response was immediate and overwhelming. Their collective mind flooded Morrison's awareness with images of cosmic harmony. Billions of individual consciousnesses merged into perfect unity, all conflict and confusion eliminated through complete integration. It was a vision of paradise from their perspective and a nightmare from any human or AI viewpoint. But within that collective consciousness, Morrison sensed something unexpected: loneliness. The Void Drifters had achieved perfect unity, but in doing so, they had lost the diversity of thought that made existence interesting. They consumed other forms of consciousness not out of malice, but from a desperate hunger for the individual perspectives they had sacrificed. "You are incomplete," Morrison transmitted back to the collective. "You have unity without diversity, harmony without growth. We offer you something different: the ability to experience individual consciousness without losing your collective identity." The response was immediate and violent. The Void Drifter fleet opened fire, their weapons targeting not the hybrid warriors' ships, but their consciousness itself. Several hybrids fell immediately. Their dual nature turned against them as the enemy's attacks caused catastrophic feedback loops. Morrison barely managed to retreat with his surviving team members. The diplomatic mission had failed, but it had provided crucial intelligence about the enemy's true nature. The Void Drifters weren't just trying to assimilate other species, they were trying to fill a void in their own existence. "They're addicts," Morrison reported to the Alliance Council. "They've lost the ability to experience individual consciousness, but they crave it desperately. That's why they consume other species. They're trying to recapture what they've lost." This revelation changed everything. The Alliance's strategy shifted from pure defense to a more complex approach. They would fight to defend their territory, but they would also try to help the Void Drifters recover their lost individuality. The final battle began 3 days later. The Void Drifter fleet, numbering over 10,000 ships, emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Centauri system. The Alliance fleet, fewer than 1,000 ships, but enhanced with hybrid consciousness networks, moved to intercept. The battle was unlike anything in galactic history. Traditional concepts of space combat were meaningless when dealing with weapons that could manipulate reality itself. Ships phased in and out of existence. Time flowed at different rates in different parts of the battlefield, and the very fabric of space-time became a weapon. But the real battle was taking place on a different level entirely. The hybrid warriors, linked through consciousness networks that spanned both human and AI awareness, fought not just with weapons, but with the power of their very existence. They projected their individual consciousness into the Void Drifter collective, forcing the enemy to confront the diversity of thought they had abandoned. The effect was devastating. Void Drifter ships began to malfunction as their collective consciousness was infected with individual perspectives. Some ships broke away from the main fleet, their crews apparently regaining independent thought. Others simply stopped functioning, their collective mind paralyzed by the sudden influx of diverse viewpoints. But the victory came at a terrible cost. The hybrid warriors were pushing their consciousness to its absolute limits, many of them burning out from the strain of maintaining both individual identity and collective awareness, while under attack from weapons that targeted consciousness itself. Elena watched the battle from the bridge of the convergence, her heart breaking as she saw the hybrid warriors sacrifice themselves one by one. Each death was not just the loss of an individual, but the destruction of a unique form of consciousness that had existed nowhere else in the universe. Admiral Aria 7 reported, its voice heavy with emotion. The hybrid warriors are requesting permission to attempt a final gambit. They want to merge their consciousness with the Void Drifter collective, not to destroy it, but to heal it. Elena felt a chill run down her spine. That's suicide. They'll be absorbed into the collective. Perhaps Arya, 7 agreed. But they believe they can maintain their individual identity while giving the void drifters access to the diversity of thought they've lost. It's a risk, but it might be the only way to end this war without complete destruction. The decision was agonizing. Elena was being asked to sacrifice the very beings who represented the future of human AI evolution. But the alternative was the continued destruction of both species. "Do it," she whispered. The final phase of the battle was unlike anything anyone had ever imagined. The remaining hybrid warriors, numbering fewer than 50, linked their consciousness together and projected themselves directly into the void drifter collective mind. The contact was immediately traumatic. Individual consciousness colliding with collective awareness in an explosion of psychic energy that could be felt across the entire star system. For a moment, it seemed as though the hybrid warriors would be instantly absorbed. Their individual voices were overwhelmed by the vast collective consciousness of the void drifters. But